So till now, we have covered 73 definitions. As per clause 73, we had covered the definition of the recognized stock exchange in the previous lecture. And in this lecture, we are going to start with the definition of the register of a company and then registrar and the other definitions. So most probably at the end of this video, we'll be through with all the definitions, and tomorrow onwards, we can start with the process of incorporation. So if you see, the definition is the register of company. Okay. So register of company means the registers of the company which are maintained by the registrar. Now, if you see, you have this another definition, registrar, on a paper or in the electronic mode. So why they have written on the paper or in the electronic mode? Because now the registrar, or what do we actually say, ROC, they maintain it in electronic form. All the records are being maintained in the electronic form. But this is only after Ministry of Corporate Affairs was electrified. Basically, MCA 21 had come. Before that, 2005, before 2005, everything used to be in the physical form, right? Like today, if you have to file the annual return or you have to file your financial statement, you do it in the electronic form. Earlier, this used to be done in the physical form, and this physical form used to be delivered to the ROC. But ever since MCA 21, the current MCA website which you see, that was introduced. Since then, things have turned electronically, and now we do all the electronic filings. Also, one more thing, just a information, who is the person behind MCA 21? It is Prem Chand Gupta, Shri Prem Chand Gupta, Shri PC Gupta. He was the minister in the UPA 1, 2004 से लेके 2009 तक, जब मनमोहन सिंह जी प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे, उनके टेन्योर में ही वाज वन ऑफ द मिनिस्टर, एंड बेसिकली इट्स हिम हु हैड ट्रांसफर्ड, बेसिकली ट्रांसफॉर्म्ड द आरओसी वर्क, राइट, एंड एमसीए 21। तो आज की डेट में जो हम देखते हैं इलेक्ट्रॉनिक फाइलिंग, उसके लिए इनका बहुत बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन है, राइट। नाउ नेक्स्ट इज द रजिस्ट्रार। सो रजिस्ट्रार, जिसको अगेन हम आरओसी बोलते हैं, सो यू सी रजिस्ट्रार मीन्स द रजिस्ट्रार or the additional registrar or the joint registrar, deputy registrar, or the assistant registrar. So basically these are the different officers in the ROC having the duty of the registering the companies and discharging various functions under this act. So as we say, so this is there. So you have almost one ROC for all the states. Like you have ROC Shillong, which is for all the northeastern state. Then you have ROC Kolkata, okay, Cuttack. So you'll find all these different ROCs. In Maharashtra, you have two ROC. One is Mumbai, another is Pune. And same way in the state of Tamil Nadu, you will find two ROC. One is ROC Chennai, and the next is ROC Coimbatore. Otherwise, for Karnataka, you have ROC Bangalore. You also have ROC Puducherry. For Kerala, you have ROC Kochi. ROC, uh, the Panaji, Pune one. The Goa one is for Daman and Diu. Goa, Daman and Diu. Then you also have ROC Ahmedabad, ROC Jaipur. So all these different ROCs you'll find here. This again I have cropped from the MCA website only, where it says that registrar of companies appointed under section 609. So now it is not 609, it was previous Companies Act. So ignore this section, which covers the various states and the union territories. Correct. This is for the ROC, and they are vested with the primary duty of registering the companies, and not just companies, also the limited liability partnership which are floated in their respective states and in the union territories, and also ensure that such companies and the LLPs comply with the statutory requirement. So let's say you have a company which is registered in the jurisdiction of ROC Mumbai, and you have done some kind of non-compliance, or anything has been, any wrongdoing. I won't say wrongdoing, but any non-compliance which has been done, right? Then in that case, it's the ROC which is going to give you first show cause notice that your returns have not been filed, or these are the non-compliances which is done. So the penalty would be levied on anything. So basically, when we say central government, and we say the company. So ROC plays a mediation role here. We do not contact central government directly. We go through ROC, right? The company and ROC, they interact, and same way central government and ROC, they interact. This is how it works. So these offices function like the registry of the records relating to the companies which are registered with them, and then again inspection available for inspection by members of public on the payment of the prescribed fee. So today, if I want to see the financial statements of, let's say, Reliance Industries, right? What I can do, I can go to the Reliance website, or I can go to the website of stock exchanges, and I can get the website. I can download the annual return and all those things I can do. But what if I want to see the financial statement of an unlisted company? What do I do? So I can go to the ROC's website, okay, and I can do the view public document. We have one section, view public document. You pay a fees of 50 rupees or 100 rupees, and then accordingly you get some time where you can download all the documents, and then you can review them, whatever you want to do, right? And the central government exercises administrative control over these offices through their regional directors. So the overall hierarchy which you are going to see, you will see here regional director is there, here ROC is also there. So if you see the hierarchy, it is like this. So you have the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, then you will find the regional directors. These regional directors will have jurisdiction over the various ROCs, and these ROCs will have the jurisdiction over the companies and the limited liability partnership which are registered. So today, if you want to incorporate any company or any LLP, what is going to be the first step? Basically, you'll have to um, identify the state in which, of course, the other compliances are there, but again, you will also have to see that your company falls under the jurisdiction of which ROC. And for this, you will have to see where this company is situated, where this company will be there, in which state the company is going to have the registered office. Depending on that, we'll have to see that which ROC has the jurisdiction over the state, and then you will do the compliance work. So incorporation work. So if I say you are going to incorporate a company in Mumbai, then you will go to ROC Mumbai. Okay. All your work will be handled by ROC Mumbai with respect to your registering, and then further work also. In that case, you cannot say that, okay, I want to select and I want to go to ROC Delhi. So that will not be allowed. If you are in, your company's registered office is in Mumbai, your ROC Mumbai will have the jurisdiction. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Right? Registrar of company. So just remember this hierarchy, right? It's important. I got it from the ROC's website only for your understanding. So just remember the hierarchy which I have said. You have the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, then the regional director. So Ministry of Corporate Affairs, technically, this ministry is the central government. This ministry is the central government, and they have delegated the work to regional directors. They've delegated the work to the regional director. So wherever in the Companies Act you'll find as per the central government, then this means it is the regional director. And also, as I say, if you go to the website of the company, you'll find it here, the regional director, right? So I think I need to zoom in a little. So this is there. And again, if you see regional directors, so you see you have regional director, Eastern region, Southern region, Northern, Western, Northwest, Southeast, and Northeast, right? So these are the regional directors. And again, if you see the list of your registrar of companies, so this is the list of the registrar of companies. So just like how I said, for Assam, Meghalaya, Manipur, Tripura, Mizoram, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, all the seven sisters, you have one ROC, right? So this is how it works. And again, if you want to see Ministry of Corporate Affairs, so the head is Miss Nirmala Sitharaman. right? She is the Ministry of Finance and she's also heading the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So usually you have either you have two ministers handling these department or you have only one minister. Like previously it was Mr. Arun Jaitley who was handling both the ministry and now we have Ms. Sita Raman, right? And then again you have the other people who are there with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, right? So this is just basic about the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Apart from that, you also have the official liquidator. So again, if you see official liquidator Indore, right? Kolkata, Guwahati, Mumbai, Kochi, Allahabad, Chennai. So you have different official liquidator. We also read the definition of official liquidator. So this is there. But if you get a question or if even for your understanding also, even if you don't get a question for your understanding also, registrar is that ROC, registrar of companies. And also remember one thing that they don't just have the jurisdiction. The ROC do not just have the jurisdiction over companies. They also have jurisdiction over the limited liability partnership. They function at the same way, right? Next, we have the definition of related party, a very, very important definition. And this definition has been again amended, changed, right? So just see what is the definition of a related party. So related party with reference to a company means the director or the relative of the director. Okay. So director and the relative is a related party. Now, why related party is important? Because later on in your CA final, you are going to study one section, right, which deals with one provision that is related party transaction. And trust me, this one particular section has so much of practical implication that people actually, uh, there is a lot of compliances which is there, right? And as far as your exam is concerned, this is very, very important. Related party transaction. This is section 188. So there has been some restrictions which have been put with respect to the related party transaction. So it's not that a company can freely transact with its related party. Let's say a company and the director or the relative, they want to transact. It's not freely that they can do. There are certain transactions on which restrictions have been put. Certain approvals are needed. So you need to check this. So related party with reference to a company means the director or his relative. Secondly, even the key managerial personnel of the company and the KMP's relative is also a related party. The firm in which the director, manager, or his relative is a partner is also a related party. So, see the firm. What do you mean by the firm? It is the partnership firm or the limited liability partnership firm in which that director or the manager or the relative of the director or manager is also a partner. In that case, that firm will also become a related party. Then again, if there is a private company in which that director or the manager or the relative of the director or manager is a member or is the director, so that company will also become the related party to the company. Then again, in case of a public company in which the director or the manager is the director and holds along with his relative more than 2% of the paid up share capital. Now, if let's say you are a director in A Limited public company and you are also director in B Limited, right? So let's say Saloni. Saloni is director in A Limited. Saloni is also director in B Limited. Both of them are public company. Can you say that these two companies are related party? Can you say these two companies are related party? Can you say these two companies are related party? Just see the definition. Check this. Is it a related party? Very good. Prathamesh is saying no. Okay. What about others? And why Prathamesh? Why are you saying no? Vinith is also saying no. Dhaval, no. Why? Because of this amendment. Because of this amendment where they have used this word and holds along with the relative more than 2%. So if I say Saloni holds 1% shares here and Saloni holds 10% shares here. Which company is a related party of whom? So you have a question. Is A related party to B or is B related party to A? Which is correct? One or two or none of them are correct. A is related party to B or B is related party to A? Nota. My goodness, none. Please check. Please check. Please check. Prathamesh is saying B to A. Correct. Dhaval is saying 2, which is B to A. Just see. Because for B Limited, if you see, there is a public company. In that public company, the director is holding 10%. So B and A, they both are related to each other or only one company is related to other. So related party with reference to the company, right? So for B Limited, A Limited is a related party. But for A Limited, B is not a related party. Got it? Guys, do you understand the way definition has been drafted? Right? So don't get too much emotional here that if one is related to other, how is the other not related to the first? Right? You'll have to see this way what the definition says. Okay. So quite possible if you get institute wants to test you on the MCQ basis, they might test you here. Right? So just see. Then any body corporate whose board of directors, managers, managing director, manager is accustomed to act. What do you mean by accustomed to act? We have already discussed, and in accordance with the direction or instructions of the director or manager. Here again, I said if the person is providing the advice in the professional capacity, then again it will not be considered. Then any body corporate which is the holding subsidiary or associate company of such company, subsidiary of a holding company which is also a subsidiary, and then investing company or a venture company. And what do you mean by investing company? A company means a body corporate whose investment in the company would result in the company becoming the associate of the body corporate and such other company as may be prescribed. Now it's a very lengthy definition of a related party, but just see when we discuss with reference to a company, when I say for a company, which company is going to be a related party. So you'll have to see for this company, you don't have to see the other way. You don't have to see whether the director is a related party to the company or not. You need to see for company is director a related party. आपको लॉजिक समझ में है? आपको सब किसके पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखना है? एवरीथिंग इज टू बी सीन फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ कंपनी एंड नॉट फ्रॉम द अदर्स. ओके, आपको सिर्फ कंपनी के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से यहाँ पे देखना है कि कौन यहाँ पर डायरेक्टर है और कौन रिलेटेड पार्टी है और कौन रिलेटेड पार्टी नहीं है. राइट? तो जैसे आपने ए टू बी के लिए आपने बोला था कि नहीं है, तो ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है दैट इफ ए एंड बी, A for A, B is not a related party, but for B, A can be a related party. Okay. So you don't have to see from just one. So here in this question, you'll have to see you are looking for which company. Are you seeing from the point of view of A Limited or you are seeing from the point of view of B Limited? So this you have to see. Is the definition of related party clear? Is the definition of related party clear? And now just see the impact of putting the word any body corporate here. So the moment you put the word any body corporate, this means the company as well as the foreign company. So the overall ambit becomes big. So this was again added. This was added in 2017. In 2017, they added this. So because of this reason, you'll find not just the company which is in India, even the companies which are outside India, and also the investing company and as well as the venturer company, everything will become your related party. Guys, this is clear, the definition of related party, right? Okay. Rest. Next, see the definition of a relative. So the definition of relative in the 1956 Act, the definition of relative was so lengthy, but now the definition of relative is now small. So what is the definition of relative now? So in terms of relative, one is the relative of the other. Ronak has asked a question, sir, do we have to write these definitions in exam? Not really. Not really. There are certain definitions which they may ask you in the exam, but otherwise, not really. Not really. But these definitions are important because let's say you are studying section 188 for related party transaction. But if you don't know what is a related party, then how will you answer, right? Ronak is asking individual question or with another answer. It can be both. It can be both. Some of the definitions you will be asked. Some of the definitions will be asked individually, and some of the definitions will be for both, for your understanding purpose, and it will be used with some other answer. So Vineet, I cannot say that these definitions are only for understanding. We have spent almost 5 hours till now for the definitions, and including today's lecture, it will be almost 6.5 to 7 hours that we have devoted only for the definitions. So it is not just for your understanding purpose. It is also for your exam purpose, because there you may be asked straightforward questions, like no one is going to ask you the definition of registrar. This was for understanding purpose. No one is going to ask you the definition of recognized stock exchange. No one is going to ask you the definitions of PFI. No but public company, again no, but private company, answer is yes, they can ask you the definition of private company. Now again, when we discuss about the prospectus, so when we will study chapter number 3 for the public issue, that point of time, you see this definition of prospectus will become important, right? Promoter definition, yes, you can get a MCQ question here, right? So there are certain definitions which will become important, and then there are certain definitions which you can say that we can skip now, right? Okay, so let's see the definition of relative. The definition of relative, again, you see the relative definition with reference to any person means any one who is related to another if. So one is related to another if they are the members of the Hindu undivided family. So we discussed now what is the relevance of the definition of relative? Because a company cannot have relative, but director and his relative, KMP and his relative. Okay, so that's where the definition of relative becomes important. So this is basically a auxiliary definition to the related party transaction. So if they are members of the Hindu undivided family, then husband and wife, or one person is related to the other in such other manner as may be prescribed. So what is prescribed here? So in case of this, you have father, okay, then you also have mother, then you also have son, you have daughter, okay, and this is including the step. So if there is stepfather, stepmother, stepson, stepdaughter, that will also be there, right? Don't write the complete list and write including steps, because if you write step husband or step wife, definitely there will be serious consequences. Okay, so father, mother, son, daughter, including the step one. Then again, you will find son's wife is a relative. Then again, daughter's husband, right? And I forgot to mention brother and sister also here. So before I write including step, brother and sister, brother and sister. Okay, including step. Also, one more thing. When we discuss the related party in accounts, you are going to study one accounting standard, that is accounting standard 18. This you are going to study in your intermediate level only. So as I said, section 188 you will study in your final, but accounting standard you are going to study 18. You are going to study at intermediate level only. So this is basically for the related party. AS 18 is for the related party, and in case of AS 18, you will again find some different kind of a definition, right? Related party. So just see this definition also. So you have the definition of relative here, and I have included who all will be there in the definition of relative. Then again, remuneration. So remuneration means any money or its equivalent. So can I say remuneration can be made in kind? Can I say remuneration can be paid in kind, or the remuneration need to be paid in cash only? In kind also, right? Because it's equivalent, which is given or passed to any person for services rendered by him and includes the perquisites. Now, what is perquisites? You will have to study income tax in that. Perquisites is basically the benefits. Perquisites is the benefits which are provided, and benefits, for example, if you have been given a rent free accommodation, okay, the company has given you a house, the company has given you, let's say, uh, a car, right? Company is providing you any other facilities, right? For which company is not charging you anything. You see that कंपनी की गाड़ी में रुके हुए, कंपनी की गाड़ी है मेरे पास, कंपनी का घर है, राइट? कंपनी का मोबाइल फोन है, और एनीथिंग वो कंपनी का है, मैं नहीं करता. सो दैट इज अ काइंड ऑफ perquisite, राइट? सो इन डिटेल यू विल स्टडी देयर. सो दैट इज अगेन पार्ट ऑफ द perquisites. So two things you need to see, that the remuneration, it can be money or it can be money equivalent, right? Apart from that, the remuneration can be paid to the person, right? And this also includes perquisites. Okay. Then we have the definition of schedule. So in the Companies Act, you have 7 schedules. Okay. The Companies Act, it is divided into 470 sections, and we have 7 schedules. So this is their schedule. Are the schedules part of the act? Can we say the schedules are part of the act? There are 7 schedules. Can we say the schedules are part of the act, or they are not part of the act? The schedules are part of the act. Okay, so you have 7 schedules. Okay, and each schedule dealing with different matters. We'll discuss this later. Okay, let's see. You have scheduled bank. So the bank which is in the scheduled list of the Reserve Bank of India. This is fine. Then you have the definition of security. So the security definition is a long list of definition. Now again, no one is going to ask you what is there, but I'll just give you some of the examples which is included in the definition. First of all, just remember it is an inclusive definition. Securities is an inclusive definition, and what all is included here? So you have shares. So irrespective whether it's equity share, preference shares, then you have bonds, debentures, stock, right? Or any marketable security. Even we had studied about derivatives. So even derivatives is a security, right? Then again, the units of CIS scheme. We also discussed about the depository receipt. Similarly, you have security receipts, right? So security receipts are there. Again, the units of mutual fund also. That is also into the definition of security. So there is a long list. Even government securities called as GSEC, that is also there. So there is a long list what is considered into the definition of securities or not. Then we have the definition of SEBI. So SEBI is the Securities and Exchange Board of India. That's the regulator there. Then we have the definition of SFIO, Serious Fraud Investigation Office. So this is a office which, again, by the name as it suggests, will investigate into the serious corporate crimes, right? Which involves fraud, money laundering, right? All those things will be taken care in SFIO. Again, you'll study about it in your final, so I'm not going to discuss too much here right now. But just remember, SFIO is again a office. So again, if you go to the website of Ministry of Corporate Affairs, you will find SFIO here. So about MCA, and you have this SFIO, Serious Fraud Investigation. So just see, the government in backdrop of the major failures of the non-banking financial institutions, phenomenon of the vanishing company, plantation company, and the recent stock market scam, has decided to set up SFIO, a multidisciplinary organization to investigate corporate fraud. Okay. So as I say that the current Companies Act, if you see, okay, the current Companies Act, if you see, this is a Desi Act. We have not, copied the, or we have not conversed as per the UK Companies Act. Otherwise, if you see, our Companies Act is always conversed from the UK Companies Act. But in this case, we have not conversed from the UK Companies Act. Okay. We have basically made our own act, right? That's why I say this is the Desi Act. Okay, which we cover here. And in light of all the scams that have taken place, we have this. Now, Ronak is asking the definition of scam. So basic meaning of scam is fraud. Basic meaning of the scam is what? It is fraud. So any fraud, कोई भी घोटाला अगर आपने किया, cheat किसी तरीके से और पैसे को इन्वॉल्व करता है. If I say scam, it's घोटाला. हिंदी में अगर हम बोले तो घोटाला किया आपने, राइट? एनीथिंग विच यू हैव डन टू चीट. और ये ऐसा नहीं होता, और ये बड़ा मतलब it's basically a device with which you have cheated a lot of people, right, through schemes. So when you cheat the people via various schemes, okay, and it involves money. So what I do, uh, let's say I tell you, give me 100 rupees, I will give you 100% return within 1 week. So you give me 100 rupees. After 1 week, I give you 100 rupees, 200. Then I say, if you remember, uh, Fir Hera Fairy movie, what was that? That was scam only. Ek ka double. Ek ka double. That is again a scam, right? So this is what happens. So you give me 100 rupees. So let's say Dhaval gives me 100 rupees and I tell him that after 1 week, I'll give you 200. Then I go to Ronak and I say, Ronak, give me 200 rupees. Next week, I will give you 400. So I take 200 rupees from Ronak and I give it to Dhaval. Okay. Now, when I give 200 rupees to Dhaval, I tell him, give me 200 rupees. I'll give you double next week. So I use this money and I give it to Ronak. From Ronak, I take money from Vinit and I repay to Ronak. Are you understanding? सो एक से पैसा लेके दूसरे को, दूसरे से पैसा लेके, इसकी टोपी उसके सर, ITUS, right? International Talent of Ultimate Students, right? So these are the people who are behind the scams. Okay. Anyway, next definition is of the share. So share means the share capital. Sir, why aren't all definitions given in our module? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether these definitions are given in your module or not. As I say, when you will be studying, you'll be studying from these my notes, the slides which I will give you at the end of the batch. I'll give you the printout also, or at the end of the chapters also, you can take printout of these slides and this will be relevant. Module, I am taking apt references, right? I'm taking apt references of the module. So it's absolutely fine. You can leave the module as of now. Okay. So next definition that we have is the definition of share. So again, you see share means share in the share capital of the company, and it also includes stock. Now, which share capital is it talking about? Which share capital it is talking about? Is it equity, preference, or both? Is it equity, preference, or both? Just remember, this is both equity as well as the preference. Okay. Next definition is of the small company. Now, if you ask me, this is one question which can be asked in the exam. This is one question which can be asked in the exam independently. What is the definition of a small company? Okay. Now, if you see, the definition of small company has been recently amended. Okay. The definition of small company has been recently amended, and you need to see this. So in the budget of 2021, the definition of small company has been changed and it has been amended, right? So I'll tell you both the old as well as the new, because most probably when you will give the exam, this will get applicable. So small company means a company in which, so it should be a company other than the public company, which means the small company should be a private company where the paid up share capital and you have the turnover. You have the two criteria, and in between there is what? There is an and. So just see, it says paid up share capital, right? Paid up capital and the turnover. So the old definition said that the paid up capital should not exceed 50 lakhs and the turnover should not exceed 2 crore. This was the old definition. Now the new definition has increased these limits and this 50 lakh rupees is now made 2 crore, and this 2 crore is now made 20 crores. This 2 crore is now made 20 crore and 50 lakh is made. So now what is going to be your answer? You would say the definition of a small company. What is going to be the definition of this small company now? You will say small company means a company other than a public company. First and foremost would be this. And then you'll say the company whose paid up share capital do not exceed rupees 2 crore and the turnover in the or the turnover as per latest profit and loss account do not exceed rupees 20 crores. So sorry, do not exceed rupees 20 crores. So this is the new definition, right? This is the new definition. And when this definition has been changed in the Finance Act 2021. So for November attempt, this will be one of the amendment. So sorry. Yeah. So for your November attempt, this will be one of the amendment, key amendment. And I'm sure because of this reason, this will be one of the most important definition. Okay. Guys, this is clear. If any one of the limit is crossed, you will say the company is not a small company. So let's say I say there is a company RS Private Limited. Can this be a small company? RS Limited, can this be a small company? RS Private Limited, can this be a small company? Yes. Now I say RS Private Limited has a paid up share capital of, I'm talking as per the new definition, it has a paid up capital of 1.5 crores and it has turnover of 20.5 crores. Now tell me, is it a small company? Is it a small company? Answer is no. Okay. If I say the paid up capital, the turnover is 20 crores, then if I say the turnover is 20 crore, then is it a small company now? Is it a small company now? Yes, because it should not exceed. Okay, so if it is, even if it's 2 crore, even if it is 20 crore, there is no problem, right? Whatever the situation will be, I'll again update you once institute comes up with the amendment, but most probably this amendment will be applicable for your attempt. Then just see, we have the definition of subscribed capital. This we have already covered, right? Then we have the definition of subsidiary company. So subsidiary company in relation to any other company, that is to say the holding company, means a company in which the holding company either controls the composition of board of directors, or it exercises or control more than one half of the total voting power. Earlier what was written here? Earlier it was share capital. Earlier it was share capital. Now they have changed it and they have made it voting power. Now why this change was made? First just understand. Just see, if I say A Limited, if I say A Limited is controlling the board of directors of B Limited, then in that case, B is the subsidiary company and A is the holding company. Okay. But if I say A Limited holds, let's say 60,000 equity shares out of 1 lakh equity shares in B Limited. Can I say A Limited is the holding and B subsidiary? Can I say A is the holding company and B is the subsidiary company? Can I say this? Can I say this? You'll say yes. Dhaval is saying no. Okay. Why no? If you see 60,000 equity shares out of 1 lakh. What is the voting right that you have? You have 60%. You have 60% voting right, correct? You have 60% voting right. But when the word share capital was there was a loophole. What was the loophole? I'll teach you that also so that you have again a clear understanding why this amendment was made. So let's presume there are, so we are talking about A Limited, okay? A Limited is holding in B Limited. So B Limited has, let's say 1 lakh equity shares. B Limited also has 1 lakh preference shares. Is it possible to have equity and preference both? Answer is yes. In that, I say A Limited holds, let's presume 90,000 shares. Okay. And it holds 0 preference shares. So technically, if you see, this becomes what? This is 90,000 out of 2 lakh, right? Into, oh, sorry. As I said, this is a temporary screen. So anyway, we are discussing for A Limited in B Limited. Now B Limited has 1 lakh equity and it also has 1 lakh preference. With respect to A Limited, A is holding 90% of basically 90,000 and zero preference. So if I have to discuss what is the voting rights of A in B, it is what you would say 90,000 out of 1 lakh. So this is 90%. And if I have to say what is the shareholding of A in B, you'll say 90,000 plus 0 out of 100 plus 100. So this is basically 90 out of 200. So this becomes what? This becomes 45%. Yes or no? Now with 45%, okay? Now with 45%, is A Limited the holding company of B? With this 45%, but practically if you see, isn't A the holding company? Practically if you see, isn't A the holding company? Answer is yes. But as I say, in law we go by whatever is actually written as per the definition. So the definition says that if one company holds the majority shares, only then you can say the company is the holding company. So this was a loophole. Technically, you can say uh, technical drafting error. This was a loophole which people actually took advantage of, and then the government in 2015. So 2014 the act came, 2015 the amendment was there, and they amended this definition. They changed from the word shareholding, they made it what? They made it voting rights. Now with the word voting rights, things have fallen in place. Now A Limited will be considered as the holding company. I hope now this makes sense. I hope this makes sense why they have used the word voting power. Okay, so you just have to see the voting rights. Apart from that, you have, for the purpose of this clause, a company will be deemed to be the subsidiary of the holding company even if it controls to in subclause 1 or subclause 2 of another. So basically this is like this. You have H Limited, the holding company. H is holding company for S1. S1 has a subsidiary called as S2. S2 is now also the whole subsidiary company of H. What does the proviso means of subsidiary company? Okay, so I have to explain this. I have specifically left this proviso because this I'm going to explain you when I'll discuss with this layer. Okay, so just see. Then if you see, okay, then if you see the composition of the board of directors is there. If you can appoint or you can remove all or the majority of the directors, then we can say the control is established. And then the word company also includes the word body corporate. So this I have explained you when we discussed the definition of holding company, that if the word body corporate is not there, what major loophole would be there. Now we are discussing about the layers. So when we discuss with respect to layers, we'll have to see section 186 subsection 1. First of all this. Okay. And then we also have to see the rules. Why this concept was included, I'll tell you that. So what happens? A Limited has invested in B Limited. B Limited has invested in C Limited. C Limited has invested in D Limited. D has invested in E. E has invested in F. Right? If this kind of a structuring is there, then government says that we will not allow these many layers. Government is saying will not allow these many layers of holding company, right? This way, you cannot have this long structure of the investment companies. That's the reason this layer is there. So what they say that such class or classes of holding company as may be prescribed shall not have layers of subsidiaries beyond such number of layers as may be prescribed. So if A is the ultimate holding company, then this is the first layer and this is the second layer. So technically you cannot have a third layer. Okay, this is the third layer, and technically this third layer is not allowed. Okay, do you understand the layers of subsidiary? This is the ultimate holding company. From ultimate holding company, we can have only two layers. So this is the first layer. This is the second layer. Now, if I say the company wants to incorporate the third layer, this will not be allowed. Okay, guys, this is clear, right? The third layer will have two exceptions. Only in two cases you can have a third layer, right? So basically, if you have 100% subsidiary company, which is also called as wholly owned subsidiary. So this wholly owned subsidiary is not a layer. If you have a wholly owned subsidiary company, this is not considered as layer. First and foremost thing, you need to see this. And if I say you have a foreign subsidiary, even foreign subsidiary, it can have more than two layers. The foreign subsidiary can have more than two layers. Ronak is saying, so a group of company has so many subsidiaries. What would they be known? Okay, so now I'll tell you. Okay, let me get the blank slide here. Take a screenshot at the end of the discussion. Okay, I say this is H Limited. H Limited has S1, then it has S2, then it has S3, and then it has S4. Then it has P1, P2, P3, P4. Is this structure okay? Is there any problem with this structure? Is there any problem with this structure? Dhaval is saying no. Absolutely not, because this will be considered as a first layer and this is the second layer. So there is no problem. So basically, vertically, you can go two. Vertically, you have a maximum limit of two. Horizontally, there is no problem. Horizontally, there is no limit. Okay. Take a screenshot of this. Take a screenshot of this. Done. Okay. Now again, I'll make one more slide for you and you need to answer this. I have H Limited. This H Limited has S1. S1 is the wholly owned subsidiary. And then this has S2. And then this has S3. Is this okay? Is this layer okay? Answer is yes. Why? Because this is not a layer. I don't know. Why do I write layer as a year? This is not a layer. This is the first layer and this is the second layer. Okay. Take a screenshot of this. Done. Okay. Here, if I say you have a foreign subsidiary, and this foreign subsidiary has another company, let's say S5, and this has another company S6. Is it okay? Is it okay? Answer is yes. There is not a problem because this is excluded. Just understand, a wholly owned subsidiary is not considered as layer. A foreign subsidiary is excluded. Okay. Now, all these restrictions which are there, this is with respect to the investment company. The restrictions that we have is with respect to the investment company. So, who had asked this question with respect to Reliance? Ronak. So, Ronak, the restrictions which are there, all these restrictions are with respect to the investment company. Okay. Now, what is an investment company? If I say that a company has a major business, right? The major business of the company or the object of the company is investments, giving loan and all. Then we say this is an investment company. Or we say that if 50% of the assets and 50% of the income they generate out of investments only. It is out of investments only. Then we say that this is an investment company. Okay. So the restrictions. So I'm not getting into too much of detail, but just understand when we discuss about the layer, this is H, S1 and S2. This is the maximum layering which you can do. Wholly owned subsidiary is not considered as layer. Foreign subsidiary can have as many as layers they want. If it is, basically this will be excluded. Okay, right? Okay. Then you have the definition of sweat equity share. Now, what is sweat equity share? So the shares which you have, the sweat equity shares, basically these are the shares which are issued by the company to its directors or the employees, and these are issued at discount for consideration other than cash. And why these are issued at discount? Because these directors or the employees, they have provided their technical know-how or they have made available the rights in the nature of intellectual property, or they have given some value addition to the company by whatever name called, right? So let's say you are an employee of the company who has got, you have found a new, so let's say take example Serum Institute. Okay, you are a scientist at Serum Institute. You have found the formula for any vaccination. Let's say for COVID, you have found a vaccine which can take care of the second wave of COVID. Now, in that case, the company, instead of giving you the money, what company gives you is company issues you shares, and the shares of the company are issued to you at discount. And once the shares are issued to you, these are not issued for money. These are issued for non-cash. And what is the non-cash consideration which you are paying? Let's say you are providing the formula to the company. Got it? Is this clear? Is this clear? Okay. So sweat equity, you need to see. You'll also get the accounting entry for sweat equity shares, and also we'll study about the issue of sweat equity shares in our chapter number 4. Okay. So this is there. Let's see. Then we have the next definition, that is the total voting power. So total voting power means the total number of votes which may be cast. Now, what do you mean by may be cast? In regard to a matter of poll at the meeting of a company, if all members if all the members thereof or their proxies having a right to vote on that matter are present at the meeting and cast their vote. Now, just see the wordings of these definition. One is total voting power is the total number of votes that may be cast. So now tell me, does actual number of votes what is casted, is it relevant here to determine the total voting power of a company? In actual में कितना voting हुआ, क्या वो relevant है आप लोगों के लिए? Is it relevant? Answer is no. वो यहाँ पे क्या बता रहा है, किसी कंपनी में कितना वोटिंग पावर है, अगर आपको ये पता करना है तो उसके लिए आपको क्या चेक करना होगा, यू हैव टू सी दैट इफ ऑल द मेंबर्स and all the proxies, right, either the members they come in person. Proxy means what? If I say I cannot attend the meeting, I am sending Vinith on my behalf. Okay, so Vinith is my proxy. Okay, so if all the members or their respective proxy they come to the meeting and they vote collectively, that will be called as the voting power. So if I say in a company there are 1000 shares, right, so what is the total voting power? The total voting power will be again 1000 voting rights. Okay, one share is equal to one vote. One share is equal to one vote. So you have 1000 voting rights. Now you'll say we have seen the past trend. Out of 1000, only 600 people they actually attend the meeting. Rest 400 never turn up. These 400 they never come. So what should be the voting rights? So is it 600 or 1000? Answer will be again it is 1000, because if all these 400 they come to the company and they start doing the voting, in that case we'll have to see that. Okay, not the actual ones. Got it? Now when I say they've used the word poll, now there is a difference between poll versus the show of hands. Okay, in case of poll, I would say if 1000 shares are there, you have 1000 votes. But if I say these 1000 shares are held by 50 shareholders, it is held by 50 people, 50 shareholders, then in that case, if we go by voting by show of hands, then we will say, what do you have? You have only 50 voting rights, because in that case, in case of poll, what is the logic? One share is equal to one vote. Okay. In case of voting by show of hands, one hand is equal to one vote. Okay. Guys, do you understand this? Do you understand this? Right? So let's say Dhaval has 951 shares. Out of these 1000, Dhaval has 951 shares, which means what is the voting right Dhaval is holding? Dhaval is holding 95.1% of the vote of the company. Correct. And rest 49 shares are held by us. Each one of us having one shares. So when a poll is being demanded, in that case, what is Dhaval's voting right? Dhaval's voting right is 95.1, because it will be 95 out of this. But if the voting is done by show of hands, in that case, what is the voting right of Dhaval? We'll say 1 out of 50. अरे ये समझा आपको? ये आपको समझा? क्योंकि जब वोटिंग होगा तो 50 हाथ ही तो दिखेंगे ना, 50 हैंड्स दिखेंगे, उस 50 हैंड्स में से एक वोट होगा किसका? धवल का. बट व्हेन आई से बाय नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स, तो इन दैट केस विल सी 1000 शेयर्स. तो शो ऑफ हैंड्स और पोल में यही डिफरेंस होता है. तो टोटल वोटिंग पावर इफ यू हैव टू फाइंड आउट, यू विल हैव टू सी व्हाट, यू विल हैव टू सी पोल. Vinith is saying how many shares does Ambani hold of Reliance? So the Ambani family holds roughly around 55% of the shares. Ambani family holds somewhere around 55% of the shares in Reliance. So if a poll is demanded, only then the number of shares comes into the relevance. If the voting is by hands, then the number of shares that you hold will have no relevance. आया समझ में? If the voting is done by the hands, then irrespective whether you have one share or you have entire 99% of the shares, doesn't make a difference because you just have one vote. Is this clear? Is this clear? Then you have the definition of tribunal. So as I said, tribunal is what? It is the National Company Law Tribunal. Then you have the definition of turnover. So the turnover definition is the gross amount recognized by the P&L account from the sale, supply, distribution of the goods on account of the services rendered or both by the company during the financial year. So this is a simple definition. Unlimited company where the liability of the members is unlimited, right? There is no limit on the liability of the members of the company. Then we have the voting right. So voting right means the right of a member of the company to vote in any meeting, okay, or by postal ballot. So whether the voting is in the meeting or the voting is electronically or through postal ballot. So that's the voting right. Then you have the full-time director definition of a full-time director. So full-time director means a director who is in full-time employment of the company. अगर आप कंपनी में फुल टाइम हो तो यू आर अ फुल टाइम डायरेक्टर देयर. Then you have the definition of winding up. So winding up means the winding up under this act or the liquidation under IBC. Now why this is? Because we had two types. So when we discuss about the winding up, there are two types of winding up. One is the compulsory winding up. So there are certain grounds which are mentioned इन द कंपनीज एक्ट. वो अगर ट्रिगर हो गया तो कंपनी को हम वाइंड अप कर देंगे, उसको हम बोलते हैं कंपलसरी वाइंडिंग अप. अनदर इज द voluntary winding up. So if you have a voluntary winding up, then in that case you go to IBC, insolvency bankruptcy code. Compulsorily voting up, winding up अगर आपका है, so this is covered under the Companies Act 2013. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Okay. And then the last definition, the last clause that we have already covered at the beginning, that words which are not defined here, you will search first in the SCRA 1956. Then you will go to which act? You'll go to SEBI Act 1992. And if SEBI Act is also silent, then you will go to the Depositories Act 1996. Okay, and if this is also silent, then where will you go? If a word is used and it is not defined here, then where will you go? Then you can see there is one chapter in your syllabus which is the General Clauses Act. Okay, you will go to the General Clauses Act. If General Clauses Act is also silent, then you can look for the Oxford Dictionary. Yes, or you can pick up the definition from any other law, and you need to basically then fix that why this definition is relevant here. So you will go to the Oxford Dictionary. Okay, is this clear? Right, now you have studied all the definition. Tell me, is limited liability partnership a body corporate? Is limited liability partnership a body corporate? Dhaval is saying yes, Vinit is saying yes. Okay, everyone is saying yes. Okay, let's go back to the definition of a body corporate. Please see the definition and tell me, is limited liability partnership covered here? Is it a body corporate? Can you say? Dhaval is saying no. Now the definition has changed. Vineet is also saying no. So just remember that you'll have to see which act you are reading. So if it is Companies Act, okay, if it is Companies Act where you are reading the definition of a body corporate, then in that case, limited liability partnership is not a body corporate. But if you are reading the definition under the Limited Liability Partnership Act, then in that case, LLP will be a body corporate. Okay. But as per Companies Act, LLP is not a body corporate. Guys, is this clear? अब आपको definitions का relevance समझ में आ रहा है? So as per Companies Act, so as per Companies Act 2013, LLP is not a body corporate. Companies Act. But as per LLP Act, it is a body corporate. Now what is the relevance or why it is different? अब आप देखो, जैसे आप section 186 पढ़ोगे, ठीक है? Section 186 says that one company cannot one company cannot invest in another body corporate. Now tell me, can one company invest in a LLP? Can one company invest in LLP? If I say A Limited wants to invest in PQR LLP, can they invest? Answer is yes, right? Why? Because as per Companies Act, PQR Limited is not a body corporate. Hence, the investments can be done. ओके तो ये डेफिनेशंस का रेलेवेंस हो जाता है. तो इसीलिए डेफिनेशंस आपको अच्छे से पूरा पता होना चाहिए. बिकॉज अगर डेफिनेशन आपका क्लियर नहीं हुआ तो आपके लिए फिर मेजर प्रॉब्लम होगा कई बार इंटरप्रिटेशन और के लिए भी. राइट. सो एकेडमिकली आप एज अ स्टूडेंट शायद थोड़ा बहुत इंपैक्ट इसका पड़े, बट प्रैक्टिकली अगर आप देखो तो बहुत कुछ डिफरेंस आ जाता है. आई ऑल्सो शोड यू द डेफिनेशन ऑफ अ सब्सिडरी कंपनी वेयर शेयर कैपिटल एंड वोटिंग राइट्स वर रिप्लेस्ड. सो ऐसे लूप होल्स रह जाते हैं एंड फिर लोग उसका फायदा भी उठाते हैं. ठीक है. सो यू नीड टू सी ऑल दीज थिंग्स. With this, we have packed up our chapter number 1. From tomorrow onwards, we'll start with our chapter number 2, which again deals with the incorporation of the company. Section 2 से लेके section 3 से लेके almost we will cover till section 22. We'll study a lot of things about the incorporation of the company, the memorandum of association, the articles of association, the conversion of the company, right? All those things we'll study there. So there will be a lot to know, a lot to cover, but all that in our next lecture. That's it for today's lecture. Take care. Bye bye.